welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, welcome back. We are in Calloway County with personal injury attorney Jeff Roberts. Jeff, how you been?
I'm doing good, Jim. How are you?
Buddy, I'm doing great. Glad to be back down here. And so today we're going to jump in and talk about issues related to automobile accidents, car wrecks, things like that, obviously. But really this time of year, things are changing. So the weather's changing, which means the sunshine is changing a little bit, and maybe we're not used to seeing it as much, but we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. And we're also going to talk about some of the farm implements that are going to be out on the roads right now as we try to get the fields ready and jump into that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about, again, this is Western Kentucky primarily that you work in here. Let's talk a little bit about the farm implement issue.
Yeah, this time of the year, the farm implements are going to be back out on the roadway. The farmers are going to be getting back into their fields, spraying and putting fertilizer down. It won't be too long. They'll be planting crops. So you people aren't used to seeing tractors and slow-moving farm implements out on the road at this point because they haven't been on the road for a few months now. And so people just kind of need to be aware of that and pay a little bit more attention, especially on some of the rural highways where you may top a hill and all of a sudden there's a tractor, a little bit in front of you that's going at a real slow rate of speed, and so you need to be ready for that and pay close attention, keep an eye out way ahead of you when you can see, because if you see a tractor a long way ahead of you, it's not going to take you very long to catch up to that tractor if you're driving highway speeds from there. And, some farmers do have a trail vehicle with their lights flashing to let the people know from that. Some do not do that, and sometimes the farmers go for a long distance before they get to the field they're going to. I mean, they may be on the highway for several miles before they get to where they're going. And one thing that people really need to be careful about in a tractor or farm implement on the road, if it's going to be making a left-hand turn, it definitely needs to be using a blinker and all of that. But I have seen people pull out to pass a farm implement right about the time it's ready to make a turn. And I've been behind people and seen some near misses. Luckily, I haven't seen one where it happened. Usually it's the tractor. I've seen the tractor guy catch it and get back over before, or the car that's going to pass slam on the brakes and from that standpoint to keep it from having the wreck. But I've also known about these wrecks that have occurred as well from where someone was going to pass, not realizing the tractor was getting ready to turn left into a field.
Yeah, and ideally, everybody that's driving is doing a little bit of check from time to time to make sure your blinkers are working, but sometimes they're not. You pull in a boat, maybe you're going down to the lake or whatever, and you just don't think about checking the trailer to make sure that, hey, if I activate my turn signal, does that show on the trailer as well? And sometimes, things just happen. But again, you want to be careful out there and give people the benefit of the doubt. Kind of back off a little bit until you've got a straight lane to pass in. We've talked about this over and over the years. We've had a number of just episodes talking about farm implements, whether it's at harvest time or times like this going into spring, right, where they're prepping fields.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned something that people need to realize and pay attention to. It shouldn't happen, but it does, and that is that a blinker can go out, and if it's your rear blinker, you may not know that it's out, or a brake light for that matter. I have had times where, one time several years ago where I didn't have any taillights. I had no idea I didn't have taillights.
We're past the statute of limitations on this story.
Well, the police officer stopped me, and I was driving and I was heading home after work. It was dark. It was wintertime and it was dark, and and I had blue lights behind me. I thought, what did I do?
Yeah.
I was actually driving under the speed limit, and And he got pulled over, and he come up and said, "You know, your taillights are out." And I said, "I had no idea they were out." And he said, "Yeah, you don't have a taillight one." He said, my brake lights were working, and so if I hit my brakes, they would light up." And he said, "You need to get." He said, "I didn't think you knew. I wanted to let you know, giving you a warning, get it fixed." And I fixed it the next day. And I've had situations where I've seen someone whose tail light was out and would be pulling into Walmart or something like that, and I would happen to park near them, and I would say, "Did you realize you had a tail light out," or something of that nature. Most people just don't realize they don't.
Yeah, I mean, you know your headlights sometimes, but yeah, the
Correct.
taillights you just really don't. Which, again, another reason is you do the preseason driving tips for motorcycles. We talk about checking the lights, checking the brakes and all that, and checking the blinker fluid. I mean, Jeff, I could see how that could be important.
Exactly. You got to
So-
keep that topped off. But that's something, well, I think it's part of being a dad to some extent. But when my daughter comes home frequently, I will check her brake lights, and I don't know the last time I've checked the blinkers or brake lights on my vehicle.
Right.
I check them on hers, but then I don't think to check them on mine at the same time. But so.
It happens.
Keep them. Keep an eye out on that. Go out and check them periodically to see if they're working. From that, and realize that when you're going down the highway, the car in front of you, that person may think they've got their left blinker on, and just the left blinker is not working. So be careful when you're going to be passing. Have a good passing lane, but if a road or a driveway is coming up and they're slowing down, there could be a reason for it, even if their blinker's not on.
Well, in related to their slowing down, it's also the people coming out of the field onto the roadway, which again is another risky situation waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, exactly. When the tractors are coming out, the farm implements are coming out of the field, that can be very dangerous because it takes them a while to get out and get straightened up from there. So you got to give them some leeway, and just this time of the year, and frankly, it's going to be off and on for for several months during the entire growing season to some extent. And just keep an eye out, especially when you're in farm country. Like I live in farm country and worked on farms all my life, or most of my life. But that is something that you just got to be careful for.
That makes sense. Yeah, Jeff, as we were preparing for this, we talked about some of the legislation that's kind of been proposed, and there's a Senate bill out there actually, and I love covering this topic. It is related to driving slow, or at least driving in the left lane. So let's come back to this familiar topic and give us an update on what's going on in the Senate.
There is a Senate bill, as I think we've mentioned before. I'm associated with the Kentucky Justice Association here. I've been a member for many years, past president of the organization. And one of the things I do for them is review legislation, and they sent me a bill a couple of weeks ago, I guess now, that I looked at, and I was glad to see this bill, actually. It is a bill that, if passed, what it will do, there's already a law on the books that says if you're on a limited access highway, the far left lane is for passing. There's only certain times that you can be out in that lane. And that's if you're passing a slower moving vehicle, if you're getting out of the way to allow vehicles to merge onto the interstate or the limited access highway, or if the traffic conditions warrant it. So if the right-hand lane is blocked, obviously you've got to be driving in the left-hand lane in that situation. They're amending that to where it applies to all four-lane highways, not just limited access highways with this bill if it passes. And also part of it is you can't drive in that far left lane at anything less than the posted speed limit. You still got the other exceptions to being over there as well. So you're still not supposed to be over there unless you're passing and all of that. But if you're in that far left lane, then you got to be running the speed limit. So.
Well, I tell you what, it feels like we're chipping away at the iceberg. But I mean, hey, get this one passed. We'll get this one through hopefully, and it'll be one more shot at opening up that left lane for passing only, rather than I'm going to be I'm going to be the state trooper for the rest of the world and make sure everybody has to slow down. So I appreciate the spirit behind that gesture. It irritates me when I'm the person behind that person. So
and I understand the same way, and it's there was always a running joke when we would travel that a person driving in front of you that's going slower than you, gets called a name, and then when somebody passes you going faster than you call them a name too. So apparently the speed you're driving is
It's just
the
playing
only,
it forward.
that's the only appropriate speed they're supposed to be going.
That makes sense.
And I'm guilty of doing that myself.
Bingo. I think we all are, but I just, hey, get out of the left lane if you're going slower than the rest of the traffic. Please, please, please. Anyway, that being said, Jeff, this came up as well as we were talking about, motor vehicle accidents. And as the season is changing, so is when we're out driving in the sun, the sunrise and the sunset. So we may actually be encountering more where we're facing the sunshine as we're driving, and that might be an issue.
Well, yeah.
Or it could be.
It very well could be, depending on what time you go into work and where you live at. I made the mistake of building a house on the west side of Murray, and so in the mornings I'm driving east into the sun, and then evenings I'm driving west into the sun as a general rule. And depending on the time of the year, sometimes the sun is not up yet when I'm coming in, or already down before when I'm going home, or it's higher up and not a problem. But I have seen people, especially when the sun is low on the horizon, either coming up or going down, where that has been at least claimed to be a causative factor in a collision occurring. And I've seen it. Think I've mentioned these roads before, but there's been a lot of collisions on Highway 80 at an intersection, two intersections. A lot of collisions on Highway 80 for people crossing, but two intersections that are repeat offenders in Calloway County is Airport Road, or 783, and Kirksey Highway, which is 299. And what I've in depositions of people who were crossing over, because they're crossing north-south, the traffic on 80 is going east-west, so the one crossing is not, they're not driving into the sun, but I've had them say, I looked and I didn't see anybody, but the sun was blinding me, or I didn't see because of the sun. And it's always, to me, been a very bad excuse for pulling out on the roadway. If you can't see that it's clear, you stay there until you can see that it's clear.
Even if it takes you a couple hours.
In my opinion, yes. I'd rather sit there for a length of time and make sure it's clear, instead of pulling out and causing someone's death or serious injury. And I've had that in others where people rear-ended going on Highway 121 or Highway 94, where they are driving east-west, and blame the sun for part of, at least partially, for them rear-ending the car in front of them. And that's just, some things you think are common sense. If you can't tell that it's safe, then you don't pull out until you can tell it's safe. If the sun is blinding you, then you might want to slow down quite a bit and get your visor or get your hand or do something to block so that you can see far enough ahead of you that you're not running the risk of somebody who's slowing down to make a left-hand turn or even a right turn into their driveway, but you don't realize it because you're blinded by the sunlight and don't want to start singing a song on you.
It was in my head already.
Everybody our age was thinking the same thing.
Blinded by the light.
So, but that was, I've always just thought, if that's the case, slow down, do something, make sure you can see properly instead of just going headlong in that way. And especially, this year or this time of the year, we talked about the tractor, and hopefully they're going to see a big tractor in front of them. But if they're blinded by the sunlight somewhat, they may not realize how slow it's going. Or a bigger problem is motorcycles. Yeah. Because people aren't used to seeing motorcycles out. Now motorcycles are getting back on the road. There's some who ride year-round when it's nice, during, even in December, if you get a good warm day, they're riding their motorcycle, and I understand that. But they're going to be out much more prevalent now, and have already started to be out much more prevalent. And so, if you're not seeing and you pull out in front of a motorcycle, it's going to be devastating for that rider in that regard. And I've done what I've been a personal injury attorney for 33 years. I would just as soon never have another family come in to talk to me about their family member who died in a wreck because somebody didn't pay attention and pulled out in front of them. And I hope I never have to have that conversation again because it doesn't occur. But that is something that, especially right now, you're not used to seeing them out on the roadway. You're used to seeing something with a much bigger profile. Pay a little bit better attention before you pull out from side roads on the main highway and make sure there's not a motorcycle coming.
Well, and Jeff, we've talked about this in previous episodes that you've ridden motorcycles for the better half of your adult life, I would think.
Yes. Yeah, I got my first street bike when I was 15 and had a street bike for most of my adult life. And if I can convince my wife, I'll have another street bike soon. But that conversation hadn't gained any ground lately.
See, if you buy it for her, though, I'm just saying, you see if it piques her interest. If not, well, you got it. You might as well use it. I'm just saying there might be an opportunity there.
Some things that would work with. My wife getting a motorcycle would not work at all.
Not going to sell that one?
I'm not going to sell it. I bought it for her on that one. And I'm not buying a pink one. So
There you go. There you go. You have to get the sidecar. Okay, honey, here you go.
But I've had that. I've ridden a lot in my lifetime. And I've represented a lot of people who've been in motorcycle wrecks. And very, very rarely, I won't say it never occurs, very rarely is it the wreck the fault of the motorcycle operator. There's been times that it is, that I've handled cases or looked at them and said, I don't think the driver of the vehicle was at fault, I think the motorcycle operator was. But it's a rare occurrence. The vast majority is someone in a vehicle not paying close attention and pulling out in front of a motorcyclist.
Well, I like how you started this segment where you're talking about it's a smaller, thinner profile, unlike a large tractor or
Correct.
a semi or even a larger truck, that you're going to see.
Right.
The motorcycle is just a totally different, dynamic, and especially if you're dealing with the sunlight, just be cautious. Just be cautious. I mean, Jeff, you were talking about you've done this for over 33 years now. So, I mean, you've handled a lot of these types of cases. You've dealt with farm implements, you've dealt with tractor trailer issues, you've dealt with a lot of motorcycle accidents and regular car accidents. A while back, you did a nice episode in episode 120 where you really talked about the car insurance. But I'm trying to figure out how in the heck a sunshine defense comes into car insurance. The coverage is, it's negligence is negligence at that point, I would think.
Yeah, it's not a defense. It doesn't provide any freedom from liability for the driver who pulls out in front of another vehicle. Don't take it that way. I think it's somewhat of an excuse to explain why they didn't see. Either they didn't look or they didn't look closely, but they don't really want to say that. Yeah. And at times, I think there is, I've been pulled up where I've looked and the sun is blinding right there, and I've either put my hand up to block it or do something to try to be able to see if the traffic's oncoming before I pull out in that regard. So it can occur. I'm not saying everyone who is doing that. I think the people who tell me that most likely are believing what they're telling me, but it's probably a reason that they've done because they don't want to say, I didn't really operate the way I should have. They're saying they operated the way they shouldn't have by saying they pulled out when they couldn't see because of the sun, but people don't want to say I'm at fault by, I should have looked better, I didn't look, and I pulled out in front of a car. So they will usually use some sort of a reason for why they pulled out and why they didn't see if they did look. So
right, Jeff, you've handled these types of cases all over the place. I mean, you're here in Calloway County, but you've got the office up in Christian County, up in Hopkinsville. But you can handle motor vehicle accidents all across the Commonwealth, right? I mean, you're not this type of law is not practiced by the county; it's by the state. I'm licensed in Kentucky, so I can handle these cases anywhere in Kentucky from that standpoint. And I have handled motor vehicle cases in probably the vast majority, if not all, of the
counties that would be considered Western Kentucky,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Bowling Green West, so to speak, to some extent. From there, and I've handled them. Frankly, I've handled them up in the Cincinnati area and all across Kentucky, Louisville, etc. I've handled several up in the Louisville area, and so yeah, I'm licensed to handle these in all counties in Kentucky, so not just Callaway and Christian County where my offices are, and I do frequently handle those in counties, not only in other counties in Western Kentucky, but outside Western Kentucky.
Well, and that's what I like about what you do with these podcasts. I mean, we do tend to talk about things that are relevant for Western Kentucky. We do talk a lot about agricultural issues and farm implements and cattle or horses or something out on the roadway that kick down the fence or jump over the fence and get out there, and we do that a lot. But you've got a tremendous amount of experience handling just, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill car wrecks, but you handle a lot of serious accidents that happen, whether it's on the city streets, whether it's on the county roadways, or even out on the interstates. I mean, so you've got 33 years of history of doing these larger types of cases. It's not just Western Kentucky law that we're talking.
Correct, and that I've handled them all over, and I think as we've mentioned before, I've got a motto, and for the office that I try to live by, and my staff all try to live by, and that's that we provide small town service and deliver big city results. One of the things about practicing in a small town is, I'm especially Murray and in Christian County, we are a community that prides itself on providing service and being nice and friendly to people, and giving good service when we're a service-oriented business from that standpoint. But I've handled cases in larger cities as well, and very successfully in that regard. And I think that I would put my abilities and my results up against pretty much anybody in the state from that standpoint. And
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're a trial lawyer. I mean, you take cases to trial.
I do take cases to trial, absolutely. I mean, but the most car wreck cases end up settling at some point. Most cases end up settling at some point in time. That's just the nature of what we do. If the insurance carrier makes a fair offer in the case, we're probably going to settle that case. It's in my client's interest to settle it for a fair amount before trial, because costs go up drastically at trial, and so they're going to put more money in their pocket. If they get that, even if they get slightly higher at trial, they're probably still going to put more in their pocket from a fair settlement from that standpoint. So, there's not a lot of car wreck trials in Kentucky anymore.
But I think the insurance agents, and we've talked about this. The attorneys who are representing the insurance companies, they know which attorneys are going to take potentially a case all the way to the trial. And
I think they take that into account.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so I think maybe their posture during settlement negotiations is a little bit different.
I believe that's correct. I think the only way you're going to get fair value on a case is to work the case up to be tried. I frequently, I have clients ask me, are we going to have to go to trial in this? And and say, I don't want to go to trial. I've had several say, I don't really want to get up in front of a jury and testify. And I can understand that it can be nerve-wracking to do that if you've never done that before, and even if you've done it before, probably still going to be
There's that whole
nerve-wracking.
fear of public speaking. I mean,
Yeah.
that's natural.
Exactly. And what I normally tell the clients, and I think it is the truth, and that is that the best way to get a case settled for a fair amount of money is to be prepared to try the case in front of a jury. If you're prepared to try the case, the insurance company knows that you're prepared to try it. The defense attorney knows if you're working the case up to try the case. And they know if you're just trying to get a case settled and you don't ever intend to try the case. And the ones who are just trying to get a case settled and never intend to try the case aren't ever going to get a fair offer in that case, in my opinion, because the insurance company knows they don't have to make a fair offer. They're going to end up taking whatever the last offer is because they don't want to try the case. And that's just, I mean, it's not just car wreck cases. I think that's pretty much any kind of litigated case from that standpoint. The workers' comp is the same situation. I'll take a workers' compensation case to a judge's decision up on appeal if need to. I'll take a car wreck case to trial and up on appeal if need to, and I've done that before in cases. And so it's just being willing to go to bat to get the proper results for your client will help you to get proper results for your clients in the future.
Well, and that makes sense. And as we've talked about, I keep referring back. We've done a lot of these episodes, so I keep referring back. You've taken a number of cases successfully all the way to the Supreme Court, and I think people realize that about you. Once you're in the case, you're in the case.
Yeah.
And that I think they respect that, and I think your colleagues on the other side, probably are looking at that, going, okay, if Jeff sets his chin on this one, we're in it for the long haul here. So let's not mess around too much.
Well, yeah,
At least you can infer that.
I had a case. I won't mention the county or anything else, but it was set to go to trial right around the time COVID hit. We had a mediation scheduled and then a trial like 2 months later. And we got the mediation, and the insurance company knew it wasn't being tried in 2 months. The trial had already been canceled by the judge at that point because of COVID. We went to mediation, and we tried to get it settled on our side, put an offer on the table, and had the mediator tell the defense attorney that the offer is not going to go down. This is our bottom line, and in fact, it will just go up because as more medical treatments incurred and the health insurance lien goes up, for every dollar that goes up, the offer goes up to get this case settled. And for whatever reason, it was a couple of years later before we were set to go to trial again, and we started discussing settlement again. And I told him, I said, well, health insurance lien has gone up by this amount of money, and so it's what we offered there plus this amount of money. And we was about 3 days before trial, and they come back and said, okay, we'll do that. And so it was, but they knew that I wasn't going to walk. It was, we'll go try the case. I'm not taking any less, and you could have settled it for 2 years ago for the same amount of money, actually a little bit less, because we wouldn't have had to worry about the health insurance reimbursement at that point. So, and so that, I think that is something that you have to, and sometimes the clients get cold feet and they may accept something. I knew this client wasn't. I'd already had the conversation, and this client was more than willing to go to trial if they didn't come up to what he and I both thought was fair value in this case in that regard. But it can be difficult to hold to that at times. So
no, that makes sense. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on whenever a claim has been filed. I mean, we've talked about that over and over, and it's amazing to me that the average consumer, myself included, doesn't really understand that there's the science of law, but there's also the art of effective negotiations.
Right.
And you do this day in, day out. The average person does not.
Yeah.
And so when they're on the phone with that insurance adjuster who's awful nice to them at the time and just really wants to help them out, they're kind of being played a little bit, and you got to be careful about that. I guess if you have questions, you probably ought to just call an attorney first and kind of understand what your rights are and what the law says. Jeff, in that regard, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, you've got multiple offices, but you've got one primary phone number.
I've got one primary phone number. I think it's better to have one number so the clients don't have to try to call different numbers trying to find out where I'm at. They call this number. It's 270-753-0053. It will ring to my Murray office, but they can transfer the call, or if I'm not available, they'll take a message and I'll call you back. If I am available, even if I'm in Hopkinsville, they'll let me know and we'll get connected up then. And from that standpoint, so yes, they've got one phone number, two offices, one in Murray, one in Hopkinsville, but one phone number for you to reach out to me.
Well, and I think anytime you're involved with an attorney, especially when it's a case that's important to your life, it's important to your financial situation. You want to be able to have good communication. You want to have good access to your attorney, who's working for you, actually. And I think if you go out and you look at Jeff's Google reviews, if you type in Robert's Law Office Murray in Google, you'll see review after review after review that comes back and says, yeah, we liked how you kept us up to date, informed. You answered questions when we had questions, or you addressed them before we even asked. And I think that proactive style that you've cultivated over the last 33 years, it comes back to that small town service motto that you have.
It is. I've always been the type that I want all the information so I can make an informed decision when I've got to decide something, and I assume my clients are that way. And the vast majority are. They want all the information, the good, bad, and the ugly, so that they can make an informed decision. They want my advice on what I would recommend, and I'm fine with giving that. But sharing that information, all the information with them, helps cut down on their stress level to some extent. Letting them know what next steps are, what to plan for, what's coming up next helps with the stress levels, because being involved in litigation is stressful. Dealing with medical issues and disability is very stressful for people. And so if I can help to alleviate that in some form or fashion, then that's what I want to do. And I think keeping people informed and letting them know what the next steps, what's upcoming, what they can expect in the future helps to do that.
Outstanding work, my friend. Outstanding work. Well, Jeff, I appreciate your time. Thanks for your help with this episode, talking about motor vehicle accidents, and especially some of the things that have changed recently as the season has changed and as the years changed, the calendars
Correct.
Changed. So let's have a great springtime here, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks for another episode with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.